You know, when it comes to quotas, it changes the ball game a little bit because, like the blacks, they claim that they've been discriminated against for years and years and years. But I think now it's every man for himself now.
I don't think that a business should be required to hire a certain amount of minorities. But I think equal rights is very important.
I think there's a presumption that people of color and women can't compete equally with men, principally white men, and I think that's where quotas then gets the bad name.
Most of those we asked in downtown Crossing today said they opposed job quotas, but are job quotas the issue when it comes to civil rights?
And I don't think that they're part of anybody's civil rights, and the reason is that for every person who gets a job by virtue of a quota, there's somebody who did not get a job even though he was qualified for it and perhaps scored higher on an exam or somehow demonstrated more merit than the person who did get the job.
I would love for somebody to explain to me what all of the big to-do is about the job quotas, because certainly there isn't anyone who has a number, at least that they would be willing to share publicly of blacks or Hispanics or women that they feel that they would be forced to hire in order to stave off any lawsuits.
Diane Wilkerson, an attorney active in civil rights, argues that Republicans use the term quotas because they know the negative impact of the word. A more accurate description would involve the word remedy.
Yeah, it's not a quota bill. It's a remedial bill. It's a bill to restoration of civil rights, to restore to the status quo the gains that were, the rights that were lost as a result of the Supreme Court's term 3 or 4 years ago, and it had a devastating impact on the ability of women and blacks and Hispanics and people of color to bring the kinds of cases that the Constitution supports.
A radio commentator and Republican, Avi Nelson, opposes the idea, whether it's called quotas or affirmative action.
You could spend the rest of future time trying to redress the grievances of history, to bring everybody up to some kind of mythical equilibrium or equal state. You couldn't do it. It'll never get done. The best you can hope to do is to say from this point on, we are going to afford equal opportunity in the structure of the laws, not in the sense of trying to bring up to date certain backgrounds of individuals.
I've long been committed to them. I've long been committed to affirmative action.
Affirmative action was on his lips, but quotas was on his mind. President Bush vetoed Congress's civil rights bill last year because he said it would encourage employers to use quotas. In fact, the word quotas never appeared in the civil rights bill Bush vetoed last year, but the bill did shift the burden of proof onto employers who would have to show that they did not discriminate. An attempt by Democratic legislators to override his veto failed by a handful of votes.
And I can tell you as a matter of fact that the civil rights advocates in the community, of people who supported the passage of the civil rights bill, were not supporting quotas. And there's nothing in that bill then or nothing in the new draft that speaks to quotas. And I think it's a smokescreen.
Some analysts make the analogy that the argument over job quotas is the Willie Horton of the debate over civil rights.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting because certainly there are different spectrums of the argument, but on this one, you know, the David Dukes of the world and the George Bushes happen to be in the same category, and I would think that it's somewhat inconsistent with the Republican Party, at least the mainstream Republican Party's public position, that they are disavowing any connection with what he is and what he stands for, but certainly as far as that issue is, they seem to share the same thought about that.
The Republicans have the same problem with David Duke as the Democrats have with Louis Farrakhan. The fact that he will on occasion say something with which I agree does not mean that I embrace him as a fellow traveler or a political bedfellow. The objective by the president is not, or by the Republicans or those who oppose this new bill, the objective is not somehow to deny people civil rights. It is presumably not to allow the law to go in a direction which will compromise civil rights of some in the name of giving benefits to others.
This year, House Democrats have tried to shift the debate by renaming the bill and emphasizing its benefits for white women. But party leaders believe that may not be a sufficient response to the charge of quotas. And while House Democrats have pushed ahead and offered their own civil rights bill, Democrats in the Senate have withheld from even proposing one because they fear a repeat of last year's debate and Republican victory. For the 10 o'clock news, I'm Meg Valancourt.